Guys here. Why are you guys so tired? Here, everybody's here.
I think I messed it up.
You just got a 3-day weekend last weekend.
That's yesterday.
Last weekend you didn't have any tests?
That was a long time.
Okay, but that was for y'all, that wasn't for us.
Yeah.
That was a long time.
But you got a 3-day weekend. Doesn't matter why you had a 3-day weekend. Exactly. We didn't.
No, I'm
You
saying
got
like
one
all
we
the
did.
time. Like I'm saying all the time. Every
Maybe if you guys worked harder, they'd do
They
that.
should connect that to the weekend.
Maybe if you guys worked harder during the days you were here. I'll be honest, there are a lot of days I don't feel like a lot of people working very hard. A lot of days.
This is not,
Lot. That's funny.
Well, anyway.
you need the basics. Math.
Which is what you're in.
Yeah, but not this. What do I need to
Hey,
learn? X
I'll tell you right now,
equals MX plus B
algebra is
that.
basic. Algebra is basic math.
That's something new.
Why
Every
MX plus
business
B
uses
that
algebra.
everything on-
There's not a business that exists that doesn't use algebra. Guaranteed.
Why MX plus B?
Guaranteed. Absolutely. Absolutely. Guaranteed. You'll see that when we get into data. That's our last subject. Data is the most real, like it's literally, I mean, it's data. It comes from real life situations. And data is all about y equals mx plus b. And some other stuff.
No, you changed it into that.
No, they did not. They
Give
didn't
me an
create,
example.
math came way before businesses. Absolutely. I'll give you an example right now. Sales. If you are in sales, if you are in a restaurant business, or if you are in any business that sells anything, you need to understand how your data matches up with, it won't match up, it will predict what happens in the future. That's exactly what math is. Using data to predict what you need to do to stay in business, basically, or how your business has changed. Math is all about, now, I will say, if you get to algebra 2, you get pre-calculus, arguably geometry even, yeah, that stuff, you're probably never going to use that. No, some people do. You guys probably not. If you happen to create your own business, some of you may, I think I just saw a stat, as a matter of fact, 50% of people wind up going into business for themselves or being what's called a contractor, where you're not technically an employee for somebody. You better understand math or you won't do very well. Like, it's all about, I mean, what do we measure money in? Numbers. What do we measure statistics in? Numbers. Like, all data is numbers.
Addition, subtraction.
No, see that? Yeah, and again, you're not going to do well if that's what you think. Trust me. What is my background? What's my background? Anybody know what my background is? No.
You have a major. You post math.
No.
Sciences.
I'm not a math major at all.
You're not.
I did not go to school to be a
Oh, yeah,
mathematician,
you
a
went into
teacher.
business.
I was in business. I've been there, done that, son. 20
Why would
years.
you go here?
20 years.
No money in this industry.
I'm not in it for the money. Don't do it for the money at all. Hey, I'm good. Don't worry about me and money. I'm
Nobody
good.
said you do it for us.
I came into this because I like working with kids. Because I want you to have somebody in here that's been out there.
Do you have any kids?
I have like a stepson.
So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You don't have to get your needs done. Like if you don't have any kids, why would you join an industry with kids? Just have kids.
Because I like working with. Are you serious? Do you think you have to have kids to like working with kids? Really? Like, just because you don't have kids doesn't mean you hate kids. Like, a lot of people like working with kids, but they don't have kids. Because you know, at the end of the day, I get to send you guys home. You're like, hey, go, get out. You don't get to do that when you have kids. I used to coach. I mean, I still coach, but that's why I coach. I like working with kids. Like, just something I like doing. But that doesn't mean that just because I don't have kids, or just because I sort of do have a kid, doesn't mean that I don't want to work with kids still. I don't know if we're recording or not. Yeah, we are. So, that's recording. If you want to replay that, you can go watch the video later and record the debate. I have another one that I recorded that at the end of the class, I started talking with a student about something, and I just left it in there. So it's one of the videos that's in there too. The last like 5 or 10 minutes of the class, you can hear us because we're right here. pretty funny. I just left it. So yes, we will get to a section where I talk more about that, and I will tell you in a lot more detail about why it's important to understand algebra, and it mainly deals with data. When you're dealing with historical data, and company, if you're a good company, you track what you've done. Historically means in the past. Like you track what you've done in the past, because what you do in the past is going to predict what you do in the future. You need to understand how it's going to help you predict. For these, I'm just giving everybody credit on these. So since we got a little bit of a smallish class, although it's bigger than the last class, so everybody that was here got credit for it. But we do need to go over it because our new lesson, so you can start a new topic. We're doing linear equations, but more specifically, this is what you'll probably remember, especially the y equals mx plus b thing. You did this a lot last year in 8th grade, should have. There are some concepts that we're just going to review today. We're actually not even going to get into slope and intercept too much. Mainly, we're just going to go over kind of how to graph ordered pairs or points on a graph. So go ahead, write that topic down real quick. Linear equation, slope intercept form, y equals mx plus b. We'll do a lot more with that next week than we will today. But that's still the topic that we'll be on for probably 2 weeks. At your next big quiz, by the way, after we finish this topic, we'll have your next big quiz. So probably in only like 3 weeks. We're not going to wait like we did before, 4 or 5 weeks, whatever it was. This will give you more time to get your grade back up at the end of this quarter. And since we already have material from last quarter I can use, as well as this new stuff, there'll be plenty of stuff I can go ahead and put on a big quiz. So you will still see equations and inequalities, which is why this is on there. Monday we'll go over another equation, the 3-step equation. I was going to do it today, but I decided not to with small classes. So slope. Who thinks they know what? So, and here's the deal. If you're engaged, if you're giving me answers when I'm asking questions, I'll cut today short. If not, I'll go up to the bell. So be engaged. Give me answers. What is a definition of slope? Doesn't have to be the math version, but like what's slope? Oh, and if your phones are out, you're definitely not getting a short grade. Right, come on. Yeah, I mean, it literally is like the slant of a line. Where, can you think of another example of where you might use slope not in math?
Like a mountain slope.
Yes, that's exactly. Has anybody ever, do you know anything? I mean, most of you probably haven't done that. I've never done it. Has anybody ever gone snow skiing? Yeah. Have you?
Yeah.
So snow skiing is all about slopes, right? What's the kiddie slope called?
A small one.
This is fun. Do you know the name that they use sometimes? It's called a kiddie slope, but there's another one word for it.
No. Because I never went on it.
It's called a bunny slope. Like bunny slope is a kid slope. So really quickly, I'm going to give you a quick version of some slope stuff, and then we're actually going to do something else. But you need to know if you can, and I hate saying memorize, but in this lesson, if you can just memorize these 2 things, you'll do fine. I'm going to make sure if you understand these 2 concepts that I'm about to go over, that you'll be able to get through this topic and do okay. Now, you may not get 100%, you may not even get a B, but you'll get a C at worst. So, I just said slope is a hill, or we just said slope is a hill. So if this is a bunny slope, and then maybe you have a hill like that goes down, that's kind of like the bunny slopes. They're very small, what's called an incline or decline. You don't get going. Was that our door? I thought I was hearing things. Every once in a while I hear. Yeah. You don't get going real fast when you're going on one of those bunny slopes. Then you might have slopes like this. So you might have slopes that are way steeper. That would be impressive if you could slope this. Oh, okay, there's is this for you to? I'll just. Because normally they give you a timeout. That's the time in. All right, I can always take it. You're supposed to log you out. All right, so here's the main two things, not the only two things, but the main two things. It has nothing to do with calculation. It's still math, so I can't say it has nothing to do with math, but there's no calculations involved in this. That's why I say if you can get this, you'll be fine, because there's no math involved. You don't have to be good at math and calculations and formulas and all that stuff. You just have to have this in your notes, really. And there will be at least one exit ticket that I give you that will not have your notes in it, and it's going to be about what I'm about to do right here. So make sure you have it in your notes, but also more importantly, make sure you understand it. Every line has a slope. If it's a straight line, it has a slope. It's made up of two things. There's a sign of the slope, meaning positive or negative. You need to write this down. Every slope has a sign, and then we'll call it a steepness. So a sign and a steepness. I'll write that word for you. So sign and then steepness. There's two parts of it. Now, you will no other teacher will ever tell you the slope. Like if you said, oh, well, that's the steepness of the slope. That's not an official thing. I'm just using it to kind of explain the concept of what a slope is. Steepness. Steepness is like the angle. So we said this is like a really flat, almost completely flat, but it still has some slope to it. Same way with that one, only it's going down. These are much steeper. The more vertical it is, the steeper it is. And I'm going to tell you how that comes into play. So there's two pieces without me giving you any equation at all, because eventually we're going to create an equation for a line. There's going to be a line that matches up with an equation, and you're going to say, oh yeah, well if I had that equation and if I graphed that equation, it would create this line. That's where we're going to get to next week. For now though, I just want you to understand when you either see a slope or when you see the slope in an equation, because one of these numbers is the slope. Anybody know which one it is? It's technically an inequality, but it's still in slope-intercept form. Does anybody know what the slope is in that inequality? And that's not part of today's lesson. It's always the number, though, that's in front of the variable, always, if it's in slope-intercept form. We'll go over that next week. But I was just curious if you remember. So again, there is a sign and there's a steepness. The steepness, like as far as a definition, it's like how vertical the line is. Vertical means like up and down. I'm gonna have to kind of abbreviate some stuff. So the steepness is how vertical. So these lines are a lot more vertical. They're a lot more up and down than these lines. If you can understand those two concepts, I will give you that. Can go in your backpack. Boy, we're really wanting to work all period apparently in this stuff. I've had to tell 3 people now to put phones up. That shouldn't happen. So, Damani, you need to be taking notes. Damani, oh, she's awake. She's tired. She's awake. So the first piece. You always think of the sign of it, the positive or negative part, like this. If you were on the left side of the line, doesn't matter what the line looks like, you always start on the left. Just like when you read a book, you don't start on the right side of the page, you start on the left side or the right side of the sentence or whatever. You start on the left. Same way with the line. We always start on the left side to figure out what the sign is. You need to write that in somehow. If you can't remember it, then I suggest you do, because that's an important concept. I'm hoping you can remember it, but if not, write that you always start on the left side. So for this line, I don't start at the top of the line. I start at the bottom of this line, because that's the left side of the line. So when I'm trying to figure out what is the sign, is that a positive or negative slope? Always start on the left side of the line. And then from there, it's pretty simple. If you're walking up from the left, I'm walking up, I think somebody just said it, positive slope. If I'm walking down, it's a negative slope. Again, if I'm walking, now here I'm walking down, so that one would be negative. Here I'm walking up. It's horrible. Plus. So this would be positive. That's all there is to it. If you're walking up from left to right, it's a positive slope. If you're walking down from left to right, it's negative. Now, that's the first part of the slope. So in this case, the slope is a -5. So before I even, and this is how this is going to happen on a quiz when you don't get to use your notes. I'm going to give you an equation. In the equation, you're going to have the slope. And then I'm going to give you 4 graphs with lines on them. And you're going to tell me which graph matches up with the equation. Now, there's an official way to do that, like there's a process to go through, but I'm going to make it so that all you have to do is understand these two concepts. Because right now, if I gave you a graph that was like this, going up from left to right, you can already eliminate those two graphs because they have a positive slope, and the slope in the problem is negative. So right now, I know any line that has a positive slope that's going up from left to right is not an option. Doesn't match up with the negative slope that's in the equation. So that's the way you eliminate one thing. The next thing is the steepness. That tells you something else. Again, it tells you how vertical it is. Here's another way to think of that. If you put a marble, and again, this is separate from the positive and negative stuff. If you put a marble at the top of one of those lines, so here we're starting at the top, not left or right, is the marble going to roll faster on one of these lines, or is it going to roll faster on one of those lines? The lines to the, just tell me the lines to the right or the lines to the left. Which one's going to be faster? Say right or left?
Right.
Right. If I put a marble on either of these two lines and let it roll, it's going to get going pretty fast. If I put it here, it's going to roll a little slower because those lines are flatter. That's what steepness is. It kind of tells you how fast the marble is going to roll. So the marble on lines that are steeper is going to roll faster, and that means your number is going to be a bigger number. Again, it doesn't have anything to do with positive and negative, because technically a negative number would always be smaller than a positive number, but we ignore that when we're talking about slope. If I had to say what the number part of this was, I might say, well, that's a low number. The marble is not going to get going really fast, so that's like a low number, like even a fraction. The number over here would be about the same. Doesn't matter that it's going down left to right, because we're just thinking how fast the marble rolls. Or how steep the hill is, whether it's going left or right, we don't even care. We already took care of that when we did the sum. The number over here, though, is going to be much higher. Might be a 3, positive 3 and negative 3. Again, positive and negative has to do with walking uphill or downhill. The number part has to do with it being more vertical. Here's how this is going to come into play, especially on, I mean, it will come into play on all kind of stuff, but there's going to be one quiz where you have to do this. I'm going to give you an equation, and in the equation, it'll have a slope. And then, or maybe I'll give you, I might give you the graph with a line on it, or I might give you an equation. It works either way. And let's say I gave you those 4 without the numbers and the positive and negative parts. And then I said, what is the slope of that line? And A might be, again, you have the answers, but imagine you didn't have the answers. And then I might give you these 4 answers. There's a way to calculate it out. If I give you a graph and I give you lines, there's a way to calculate it out. That's the way you should do it. But I told you wouldn't really need math if you understood those other 2 concepts. You won't need to know how to do the calculation and come up with the correct number, because we can eliminate a bunch of those right now. And you'll get better at eliminating the steepness, the number part. But right now, if I have 4 graphs. I'd have to give you just one graph. Well, I'll do it right now. Let's say I give you this right here. That. So that's the line on the quiz. I give you that line. What do you know immediately about that line? It's a negative slope, right? It goes down. If I draw my little guy, fantastic artist. If I draw my little guy, he's going to be walking down from left to right. Well, that eliminates 2 options right there. Can't be that one because that's positive slope. Can't be that one because that's positive slope. So that's done. Got rid of those. Now you'll get better at this next part. So it's a negative slope. It's got to be B or D. Now I just need to look at the line and say, well, is that a flat? Because this is a half, which is a pretty flat line. That's a -2, which would be a much steeper line. Would you say that's steeper or flatter? Yeah, it's definitely not flat, right? I mean, I told you what a half looks like. Half is pretty flat, like, it's gonna look pretty flat. Well, if it's not flat, can't be that negative slope, so boom, got the answer. Didn't do a single math calculation at all on that. There will be an entire test. It's basically, again, exit ticket, I should say. That will just pretty much be doing that. I might give you the graph, and you might pick this out, or I might give you an equation and then give you 4 lines as your multiple choice, and you have to pick which line matches the equation, and it'd be the same process. Which line is sloping the correct way, and then which line is the correct steepness. Let's see. Anything else on that? So the slope, again, it's a measure of which direction the line is going. Is it going up or down from left to right? And then is it like flatter or is it more vertical? That's what the answer to 1 is. That's what slope is. The y-intercept, we're not going to do a bunch with that. The y-intercept, though, if you have a line, it's where the line crosses the y-axis. So I'm going to draw one real quick for you, and then we'll move on. If I can find a pin that's not black. Oh, bring out that can. Oh, there we go. So, I don't want that. Blue on blue doesn't work either. Purple. So if you have a line, and let's say I drew the line like this. Hopefully you can see that. The y-intercept. This is the definition of it. You are going to need to write this down. I didn't do this last class, but it is where your line crosses the y-axis. That's the y. That number. So the y-axis, by the way, is the whole line that goes up and down. The whole entire line is the y-axis. The y-intercept is one single point on that line. So that's the y-intercept. That's the y-axis. Just like the x-axis is the left and the right. So that. Say it again.
The one that crosses the line.
Well, you could even write the single point, like it's one single point, where the line that you are graphing or that is graphed or however you want to say it, you can just say the line if you understand it's the line, crosses the y-axis. The y-axis and the x-axis, by the way, those are fake. Those aren't real lines. Like that's just kind of to give you an idea of how to plot points and where to put them. Does anybody? You better not have that phone out again.
I know.
You want me to walk over there right now?
No.
Then I'm going to turn around and that phone's going to be gone, right? Why did you come back in my class? Why did you come back in my class yesterday? Why? You both did, huh?
Who?
You and Sarah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, they're actually not.
So you just lied. No, go.
Can I get your food?
No,
Please?
I don't have any
All
food.
my house has is stale ramen noodles.
I come back later.
Please.
Come back later. I don't have any food. I really don't have any food.
That is such a lie.
I mean, not
Right,
food that I'm gonna hand to you right now. Come back later.
I used the bathroom.
Come back at the end of the period. Yes.
Can't.
All right. So, if you understand those two concepts, again, we have this point now that is the y-intercept. So that's the next thing you need to understand. Slope and y-intercept are like, again, without doing any calculations, if you just understand what slope and y-intercept are, you can answer almost every question that I can do as far as a graph goes, because it's a very visual lesson. But you got to remember the y-intercept is just one single point. For some reason, kids always think it's that whole thing. That is the y-axis, not the y-intercept. You need to write that definition down. Y-axis is spelled like this. You need to write in your own words what the difference is between y-axis and y-intercept. The axis is this whole, it's like the number line, the vertical number line, you can even say is the y-axis. The whole thing. The y-intercept, what does intercept mean? Play defense. Huh? What happens when the defense comes over, the ball's coming this way, defense comes over and does what? Yeah, he meets up with the ball, basically. Like the ball's going one way, he comes over, and that's where he and the ball meet. They intercept each other. He intercepts the ball, technically, but they intercept. Well, that's what intercept means. It's where they meet. This line's going one way, this line's going another way. They meet at that point. That's why it's called the y-intercept. They meet at that point. So if you need to write that definition, intercept means meet or connect. They connect at one single point. And that point is the y-intercept. The y-axis and whatever the line is that you're graphing, or that they already graphed. Like I said, if you can just understand those two concepts, there is some math that we're going to do behind this and calculations. You won't need the calculations most of the time. I mean, some of it's, I guess even when we do rise and run, that's some calculations, but there's not a ton of math in this. There's not a ton of it. Not like when you solve equations and you got to do a whole bunch of stuff to get an answer to that. All right, lastly, there's one real point I was trying to make. I'm not even really solve it out. Does anybody know the point I was trying to make there, or the thing I was trying to make sure you remember to do? Kind of a big hand. What's that? Yeah, if you get to the end of a problem, so we would subtract 8, then and we'd have 3 on the right. As our last step, we would divide by -5. Remember though, when you divide by a negative in an inequality, you flip that sign. That was kind of the only point of number 3. You're still going to see inequalities and equations, and you're still going to solve for variables, even though we're sort of moving past that lesson. But I don't want you to forget how to do that stuff. So every once in a while, I'll put one of those on. We're actually going to do a problem on Monday with that in it. Any questions on any of that? All right. So here's what we're going to wrap up with today. We're saving that for Monday. I'm going to tell you a quick story. It's not a sad story, so don't get upset. It's about the woman that I almost married. Miss Graff, Stephanie Graff, Miss Graff.
True story?
Hmm?
True
Talk
story.
to the woman when I lied about the woman I almost married. Very personal with it.
Alright.
So, Miss Graff, we dated for several years. We actually met and both lived in an apartment complex for a long time. I even have a picture of the apartment complex. Ooh, that's a little large. Well, this is kind of it. I want to show you what it looked like real quick, because that's important to the story.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a pool on the roof, which was very cool. The gym was actually a pretty good gym, so I used the gym a lot back then. I didn't have to have a gym membership since I used that gym. She moved around. I always lived here. This is where I lived. Yeah, that's why it's in blue. I always lived in the middle, which was a pain in the butt. I'm going to explain why it was a pain in the butt. So she lived way up here on the corner one time. She lived down here one time. I think she lived either one of those two, or maybe, you know what, I might be even missing some floors. That's not all the floors. So maybe she lived 2 below me, but then there were still more below her. So she moved around a lot. So the problem with this, the pain in the butt part of this was, these things were elevators. And every time I wanted to go anywhere, because I lived in the middle, I would have to go to an elevator. So like, if I'm going to the gym, the door to the gym was on this side. So if I'm going to the gym, I have to go all the way to the elevator, then go down on the elevator, and then I could get to the gym. And then the gym door was a little farther down, so I had to walk back a little bit. If I'm going to see her, maybe I have to go to this elevator over here. But once I go to the elevator again, going down on the elevator. If I'm going up to the pool, I may have to go to the elevator on that side. The pool side was over there. So it wasn't the most convenient thing, because to get anywhere, I'm always walking either to the left of the elevator or the right to the elevator. Then I could use the elevator to go up to the pool or her down to whatever. Yeah, it's totally fake. Not real at all. What's it about?
Come on, Brad.
Yeah, what's her name? Miss Graph, right? So here's the biggest problem I see with graphing. We go the wrong way first. We go up first all the time because you learned this thing called rise over run. We're going to forget everything we learned about rise over run. We are always going to go which direction do you think we're going to go first? Which way did I have to go first?
Down.
Did I go down first?
No, you went left.
I went left or right because the elevators were over here and over there, right? I went left or right first every single time. Then I took the elevator up or down. You need to remember that because I already did this once with a class. We went over the whole story. We did some practice. Still had people going the wrong direction by at the end of class when they did it. You do have a little exit ticket. Super easy. Everybody got $100. So you go left or right first, just like Mr. Gill went left or right to the elevator first. Then I took the elevator up or down to get wherever I was going. Now there's another little thing you may have learned, well two, somebody came up with one today, I'd never heard. One I had heard was Superman has to run before he can fly. So he runs left or right, then he can fly up or down. Somebody said something about a baby has to crawl before it can stand up or something like that.
Yeah.
Something, have you heard that one? Again, I don't care how you remember it. The key is when you are graphing, and I don't care what type of graphing you're doing. Yeah, what type of graphing you do. You always are going left or right first. Whether you already have the line or the point on the graph and you're just trying to figure out what the coordinate is, or whether you're putting something on the graph yourself. Always left or right first, then up or down. Got it, right? Nobody's going to make a mistake on these.
Left or right, then up and down.
Left or right first, then up or down. So let's see. Oh, and the reason we're really doing that, if math version behind it, X is what's called the independent variable, Y is the dependent variable, or you probably heard input and output more often. X is the input, that's what we put in to a function machine or an equation. Y is the answer we get out. So if X is the input, that's why we do the X first, and X is the left or right X axis. Then that will give us a value that is a Y, which would then go on the up or down. Oh, how do you remember which axis is which? How do you remember Y is the one that goes up and down, X goes left and right?
You just said that.
You can, if you can remember it, that's fine. If you just remember it because you've seen it enough. But there's,
Y-axis is the number line.
well, they're both number lines. The X-axis is a number line too that goes left and right. How do you remember? Nobody ever heard this trick? Nobody knew it last time.
What's the trick? And then I'll tell you.
What does Y rhyme with? That might help you remember the Y goes up and down. Huh. Yeah, sky. Y goes to the sky. Y to the sky. Or another one is Y goes high. If you remember that the Y goes up, then you can remember that it goes up and down. So Y to the sky, Y goes high, any of that works. Again, you're going to have notes for most everything. Just make sure you have something available where you can see the Y, X and Y axis. But you won't have that next year on the EOC or on tests like the PSAT, that stuff. So Y goes high. All right, so here's what I want you to do on your papers, because everybody knows how to do this now. I want you to put these, I'll zoom in a little bit, put these points. You don't really need to see my whole graph because you have your own, so I'm just going to leave it there. So there are 7 points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Make sure you have, oh, and label them. Once you put one on your graph, write, okay, this point is the point 3, 1. I'll even help you out a little bit. I used every color, so I can't really, I guess I'll use black. So the X value, Y value, that's what an ordered pair is. An ordered pair is an X and then a Y value. So each one of these, by the way, is only 1 point. Hold on just a second, I'll give it to you. We don't do this because this is the first thing that I'll have to correct. So I'm just going to correct it right now. I don't do this. Well, oh, my x value is 3. Somebody still did this last class, even after I went over this. I don't do that. Oh, well, my x value is 3, my y value is 1. There you go. That's 3, 1. No. Those are each 1 point. You use a combination of the two numbers to figure out where the 1 point is. So do not do what I just did. That is wrong. I'm going to put the correct one up there in a second. So you have at least one example and then let you correct that one. Remember, we go left and right to that first number, then we go up or down to the second. You can compare with somebody else if you want to check your answers. I'll look at a few of them, but I may not look at all of them. You do have an exit ticket on it. Just putting points on a graph. Well, actually, it's a little more than putting points on a graph, but you need to make sure you know how to do this. No reason why you shouldn't start out with a 100 today on this easy exit ticket.
It's too hard.
That's not a good reason. Oh, that gets weird.
What would be a good reason?
All of a sudden, you just went blind. That would be about the only reason. It's that easy. Hopefully that doesn't happen to anybody. I would feel really bad if it did. Like, that's not just. I think we're probably safe. So for the first one, I go left and right first. So I'm going to my elevator. My elevator in this case is at the 3. So I go all the way over to the 3. That's the first number. That's where I stop. Now I take the elevator to the second number. In this case, it's +1. So I take the elevator up. +1. That's where you should have had that first point. Oh, and then label it, like I said. So your end result should look something like this on your graph.
Write that.
Yep, I want you to label it with the number so that when I walk around and check, I can just see really quickly that you did it correct, because I don't remember where every single order pair is, 7 of them. And they're all a little similar. So some of the same numbers get used over and over again. You're putting points on a graph.
Wake up.
I couldn't see. See, you had some stuff. I'll give you another minute and I'll start walking around. I mean, it shouldn't take a real long time to do this. Oh, I gotta get you the. Does anybody else not have one of these to do this on? You don't have to draw your own. Look at me. You got an exit ticket today. That's an easy one. I'm not. If you sit here and sleep, I will not help you. Oh, come on. Wake up. Wake up. You need to wake up and do this. Come on. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Too easy a day to sleep. You can sleep at the end of class when you're done. Lonnie, wake up. Come on. You have an easy exit ticket. Don't take a. I won't help you if you aren't trying. Everybody got 100 in the last class. It's an easy way to start out the quarter. You're putting points on a graph. So these 7 points, I already did one of them for you. You go left or right to the first number, then up or down to the second number. Sleep and we'll be done in probably 20 minutes.
Wait, this is right.
No.
Oh.
This is practice. Once I feel like we're good to go, then we'll do the exit ticket. So the faster we get comfortable with this, the sooner we'll do the exit ticket, more time. So that looks good. No, there's one wrong. There, that was good. At least the way you have it labeled, I don't know if you wrote the wrong point or something, but the way you have it labeled, that's not right. And it looks like it's not right because you wrote the correct ordered period. Write the whatever ordered period is when you point, so I can just look at it. I'm not going to look back and forth and try to figure it out. That looks good. 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 That looks good, and that looks good. That looks good. That looks good. I think you just didn't write it down correctly. That's fine. Or maybe you crashed that. Good. I think I have a little trouble reading your handwriting. Seems like you know what you're doing. It's amazing how many people had this completely down, but how many people I had to have correct their execution. Good. I think we're in pretty good shape so far. Haven't really corrected too many. Good. I think you did this one correctly, but you wrote it. Yeah, you wrote it correctly here, but then you labeled it wrong. This was this one right here was that one. Or which that is. You put it in the right spot, but then you didn't label it.
Because I was confused because I was looking up there because I thought I was missing one.
Good. My phone's up. Hold on.
I have to wait here.
Doesn't matter. We don't pull phones out. You guys know that. Don't give me excuses. You just get the right one down. You don't figure out that one. Either that or you put it in the wrong spot. That's not 3 0. That's 2.
That's 2-0. 2-0.
That's a close
combo. Yeah.
Oh, that's common. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like Leo. I could read some of the
I
think
just
you did them all right.
almost.
That was good. So I think we're in pretty good shape. So again, if you draw the lines in, that's not a bad idea, but you still got to know where the point is. So like for the next point, 3, 4, you should have one single point.
Everybody knows
So I
that.
see you putting one single point on there. Miss Thompson comes in, I'll have her work with you a little bit on it. She should be in here today, now. Good. Good. All right, you guys look like you're in pretty good shape. I already looked at yours. Did I look at yours yet, Daniel? I don't think so.
There's no button.
Damani, killing me. Killing you. You're gonna be the first one to ask a million questions on the exit here. I'm like, well, all right, so remember, which way did I go to get the elevator first? Which way did I go to get the elevator first? Left to right or up or down? Get the elevator. The elevator. Remember my story about Mrs. Graff? That's all about gravity. What did I do first?
Not here today.
I went which way?
They already put it in.
Left, well, left or right, because the elevator could have been on the right, so you always go left or right for the first one. Alright, so let's look at it now. 2-0. Well, if I went, so if the first number is 2, you go left or right. Start here, 2 is clear to the right, so I go to the right. Then I would go up or down to the number, well, it's 0, so I don't go anywhere. So that was correct. You went left or right first to 2, and then you didn't go anywhere to 0. Perfect. 3-1, same thing. You went left to right first, left to right, and then up to 1. Why? 3, 1. This, though, what number did you go to there? So where would you go? 3, 4 is your point. Where would you go first?
Probably close.
No, not first. Left or right, always first. Always. That first number, whatever the first number is in an order period, you go left or right to get that number starting in the center of the order. Show me where you would go. What's the first number?
Probably on.
First number is not 3. Well, I'm sorry, correct number is 3. You're
You didn't
not,
answer last time.
you're not pointing to 3 when you're saying you
I'm
could.
gonna call them wrong.
So show me again where you would go. No, I think you might have been right, but I thought you were pointing to, yes, there. You go there, right? Not here, which is what you did. Right? You went here and then up. You should have gone here. There you go. Right? And now, what about that point? -1, it's actually -1, -3. That's fine. So that point is -1, -3. What number do you go to first?
Go like this. Push it
There you go. So you go to -1, then down. So remember that. Be very careful. So this is both good and bad. It is easy, but it's also easy to lose points because there's no like partial credit. Like, oh, I got the X right. Well, that's not enough.
Doesn't
Like,
count.
if you go the wrong direction, or if you write a negative when it should have been positive, or if you forget it, I mean, that's wrong. You have to be careful on this topic in general, but the exit ticket for today. So I think for the most part, we're pretty good. Did I not check anybody? Well, mine, I check you, but you don't have any down. I don't know that I checked.
Bro, we're pushing down.
Baseball. That was good.
Down.
Good. Okay, so same thing on this one. What number is the first number? Teaching. So we go first to that number.
Tell me
Where's
that
that?
might work.
Well, no, we go left to right first, remember? So left
you
to
can
right
push your hand
should be
in
to
the
which spot?
You have to rush your hair.
Yes.
That's what I was doing.
This is long one. And 1 is the first number. We go left to right first. We go to this. Then we would take, based on that story, we would take the elevator down.
You can see from there. You agree with me.
So the other ones look pretty
It's
good.
down,
just
but this
down
side is
right.
like-
Oh, well, actually, this one,
Push it
2,
down.
0. That's 2, 0, not 0, 2. I think if you put your both of them, it's like this 0, 2, where you start at the center. If the first number is 0, then you don't take the elevator either direction. You don't go back to the right. So you still have to go up to 2. Be careful with those.
I shaved mine up.
I did. Let me look at one more, and then we're gonna practice one more thing, and then we'll do the exit ticket. 4, 3. There was one I think there. Oh, you didn't. You just did. Oh no, 0. You did 0, 2. No, it was a top. So you had it. It does stay on the axis, but then it goes up to the top. Any questions? I mean, for the most part, everybody looked pretty good that I was able to grade. So, Damani, you need to pay attention to this next part since you just missed out on that part because you're still doing the exit ticket.
What's the exit?
Like literally in about 5 minutes, probably, as long as we do okay on this next, and then you'll have a bunch of time left over. If we're okay on this part. So now we're gonna do it a little bit opposite.
Damn it.
So I want you on that graph, same one you have, put these points, so you can see where you go to put the point.
Opposite.
Actually, we just did those, I think.
What are we doing?
Oh, no, we didn't. No, we didn't. So put those points. Now I want you to label them. So we're going backwards. Now I'm giving you the points. You're telling me what the X and the Y are. Same concept. Well, first you need to write the point. So you can see where the point is. It's above the 2 and left of the 2. Or I'm sorry, above the -2, left of the 2. Below the -3, left of the -1. Like, there's only 4. I'm kind of giving you the answers.
Literally just give it a first.
So again, same concept. If I give you the point and you have to write the X and the Y, you still say, okay, well, which number is the left and right number? That's the first number. So from the center, you go left or right until you're either under or above the point. Then you would say, okay, well, now I need to go up and down. That will be your second number. And you always start here at the very beginning of that process. I'll probably do one of them in a second. Oh. My knuckles have never done that.
What?
Not on purpose. My knuckles, like she's just cracking all over knuckles. Some people, it's just like, breathing for them almost. They don't even know they're doing it.
I'm done.
Mine had cracked before, but it's not a good thing when I do it. Because they can't breathe. Because it means I did something that hurt them.
That hurt them.
Do you know what the
Bad
cracking
feelings.
is? Do you know what that is? There's little air bubbles that somehow gets in your joints and nothing. So apparently I don't get that. And you can feel it, like it's just irritating. And for you, it's just like getting rid of it and popping it real quick. For me, if it happens somehow in mine, it's bad. All right, so same process. I'm not going to walk around on this one, but this is getting closer to what you're going to do on the exit ticket. You would simply start here, and you would say, okay, well, Mr. Gill goes left or right first to get to the elevator. All right, I'm going to do that one over there because sometimes those are a problem. So if I'm trying to do this point here, and I'm starting here, I would go right. Well, my first number is my left and right number, which is going to be what? 4, right? That's the number I go to if I go left or right to get to that point. So my first number for that is 4. Then my second number will be which number that I go up or down to. Where am I going up or down?
0.
I don't go anywhere, right? If you don't go anywhere, then your number is 0. Sometimes that throws people off. So that would be that ordered pair. So I'll let you check the other ones. If you think you didn't know what you were doing, you want to try to do 1 or 2, I'll give you a second to do that. Then I'm going to just fill in all of them and you can check your answers. I mean, you can check with each other too if you want. Exit ticket is up on the list. But there's one more thing I have to show you before you do the exit ticket.
Can we grab it?
I'm going to show you exactly what you're doing for the exit
Bro.
ticket.
Milking it.
Well, that's because this is not what you're doing for the exit ticket. There's one little difference that I'm going to show you and then we'll be done.
X at the side of it.
I mean, I don't think it's hard, but I still want to show. Put it this way: I want everybody to get 100, not a 90, not an 80. I want everybody to get 100 on it. So I'm going to show you exactly what you're going to do in a second. All right. So real quickly, for this one right here, again, left or right first.
You gotta tell them to go.
Left, I go to -2. That means that's my first number. Once I get to the -2, I go up. So that's a +2. That was that point. Oh my goodness, you're late. Let me see.
I'm hoping but not to come back with a torch.
Oh, just that part. All right, so from here, now I go left or right first. Well, if I'm going to this one, I go left. So my first number is -3. That's where I stop when I go left. Then I go down to -1. So my second number is -1. Here, I go left or right first. Well, if the point's there, I need to go right. Well, then that's a +2. Now I go down. Well, if I go down, that's a -4. That should have been what you had for your points. Those 4 points. Any questions?
Bro, it was literally the opposite.
Hmm? You get them wrong after saying how easy it was? All right, so what we're about to do is exactly what you're going to do in a second on the exit ticket. Different points on the exit ticket, but so I've given you some points. Oh no, no, that is the exit ticket. There. Well, I don't think anybody memorized that quickly. Apparently they erased. So here, let me put them back in. So there was a point there. Hold on just a second. There was a point there. There was a point there. And there was, I'm gonna have to zoom out a little bit, I think. Oh, maybe not. And then that's kind of the point.
That's the point? Okay, makes sense. What?
Kind of a pun. No pun intended though. All right, so here's what you're gonna do on the exit ticket. I give you a bunch of points on a graph and I label them for you. Some of them are right, some of them are not. So you're going to have to go through each point and you're going to have to label the ones that are wrong. You're going to have to scratch through it, which we're about to do. These are all wrong, by the way. So you're going to go through each point. If it's right, you just leave it. You don't do anything with it. If you're like, yeah, that's the correct spot, it's labeled correctly, you don't do anything with it. You can put a check. Some people last class put a little check mark over it. I don't care if you do that or not. If it's wrong, you're going to do this. So pick one that's wrong. They're all wrong.
Great.
We'll pick one though.
3, 4.
3, 4. So I labeled that 3, 4. That's wrong. What should it be? So somebody said 4, 3. Is that right? I would be starting here. The point's over here, so I'd go left or right first. Well, in this case, it's left. Well, if I'm going left, the number is -3, not +3. Now I do go up, so the second number is correct. So I would scratch through it, and I would just relabel it with the correct numbers. That's what you're doing on the exit
That's
ticket.
not right, though. That's 3, 3. It's -3.
Oh, it is right. I put it in the wrong spot. Well, again, they got erased. I had them up there already. I didn't even look at over there. Yeah, I
hope it ain't like
I guess I wrote them in pen, and so they erased when I hit the erase button. So that's what you're going to do on the exit ticket. Again, we would scratch through that. That's -3, 4. So what's this one supposed to be? Actually, this one's way off. I put that one in the wrong spot too. It's supposed to be down here. There. So -2 was correct. I did go left, but I went down, which meant that should have been -4. So I fix that one. How do I fix this one? Purple.
You do 2 and then 0.
Yeah, I went to +2 first. So that needs to be my first number. Now, I had the 2 numbers correct. They were just in the wrong order. So no, you do not always go up first. We never go up first. We go left and right first. Always. Always, always, always. If you missed the story about, you didn't hear the story about the woman I almost married. If you would have heard my story about the woman I almost married, you would have known, why is that out?
I did.
Come into my class late and then pull out a phone? That's.
Talked about an elevator and stuff.
So which way did I go first? When I left my room, I went left or right first, which means you're going to go left or right first. Then you're going to take the elevator up or down. That's the whole point of that story. It wasn't a real story. So what is this one? How do I change that one?
Pretty deep story.
No, I got pretty emotional. How do I change that one then? Yeah, I only went to 1 first, so they're flipped backwards. So that should have been 1, 2, not 2, 1. So again, some of the points will be correct on your exit ticket. So if you look at it and you're like, I don't see anything wrong with that, it's not wrong. Some of them are correct. I'm not going to tell you how many, anyway, yes I did. So just correct the ones that are wrong by scratching through it, putting the correct numbers, and
What's still wrong? You know what you're talking
I was gonna say, I don't see that are wrong now. And then, if it's correct, you just don't do anything to it. Just leave it there. Don't change it at all. This is your last chance. Any questions? No? All right. I'll pass it out. The exit ticket. That's what
Why is he not here today? Oh my god.
about. Benchmark board.
happens.